And we're live. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. I've got Mr. Ryan Roxie from the Alice Cooper Band here with me today. How you doing, Ryan?
What's happening, Brandon? Nice to see you.
It's good to see you as well. Just like I said, kind of waiting for everything to kind of open back up so we can get out there and do the damn thing for everybody.
It's been a while, hasn't it, man?
Yeah, I got to play a show this last Saturday night. It wasn't anything crazy like pre-COVID times, but just finding those 2 or 3 moments on stage where you're just totally focused in on being on stage and you forget that everything else is going on. Those 2 or 3 moments of clarity I would not trade for the world that I had Saturday night.
Well, how does it work out these days? I mean, because I know they're going to try and ease us all back into the live shows, but was it a club, and was it like when they say socially distance, or were people like, head, you know, like head banging in plastic bags, or how was it?
Here's the thing. I really wish that I could say that it was a very socially distanced show
It was
and
not.
that it was not, but and I hate, kind of having to get into the defense stance when you mention that you played a gig like that, because for me personally, trust me, every musician in the world wants to get back out there and playing gigs right now. Of course, we want it to be safe, but at the same time, we do still have bills to pay, and
Yeah.
it's a really sticky situation once you start getting into there. Everybody's got their
Slippery
own
slope,
opinions,
man.
so
It's a
yeah.
slippery slope to get back into gigging and stuff like that. I mean, it's obviously going to be a much more sort of, I feel, will be a much more controlled sort of approach when they start giving bigger shows. So
Yeah.
the hardest hit are the huge bands, to be honest with you, because I feel that those stadium gigs will take so long to get back, and if you do a stadium gig at, what they're doing now with sporting events at, 25% capacity,
some
that's,
some places, hell,
that's
some
being
of
the
them are.
opening band, man. All of a sudden the headliner's the opening band.
Say hell, some of the excuse me, some of the stadiums here in America are quite packed, especially down in Florida. Looking at the Super Bowl, there was quite a few people there at that game.
Florida is a different world. It should actually annex itself
Yeah,
off
it's
into,
like it's
so
like
because
Texas.
perhaps Texas as well. I've spent much more time in Florida during my lifetime. My dad lived in Florida for many, many years, and so I have like, half brothers and stuff that all live down in Orlando. One of my best friends, Mike Pavlik, big shout out to, Cocoa Beach, or where is it? Melbourne, Florida. He
Okay.
owns a hot dog shop there. But, so I do have a lot of connections, and the Alice Cooper fans that come to the shows may always make Florida a very special and unique place to play. And of
Absolutely.
course our stage manager Caesar, he comes from Tampa Bay, so it's all around that area, and it is very much a bunch of different worlds within one state, but at the same time it does seem like it's pretty much, always on 11, and it is a party atmosphere no matter whether you're in you know the yeehaw part of the state, or if you're in the salsa part of the state. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. When you start seeing news articles about that place, you don't know if you're reading the Onion or a legitimate source.
Well, it's only going to get more interesting, I feel, down in Florida.
Perfect.
But it's going to be all over the states. It's crazy because, yeah, how are they going to break us back into U.S. tours when, if every state has a different protocol? Because, you know, for what I'm used to going on tour and, having a show in Columbus, Ohio, and then the next night have a show maybe Washington D.C., and then the next night maybe somewhere in North Carolina. So we travel a lot of space within a short amount of time, and now I'm just wondering if there's going to be, how many states will we have to skip, and what kind of dartboard type touring will go down if not everybody sort of eases back into the touring at the same time. But you know what? As long as it starts sometime somewhere, and it starts safely, I feel that maybe, optimistically and realistically, I feel maybe the end of the year to
Yeah.
be really, really safe. And but we'll see. Like I said, could come sooner, could come later. You never know.
I think, well, you're going to see different things come back at different times. Like you said, those big stadium shows are going to be the last thing that come back. And it's funny, see it. It's not funny. I shouldn't use that word, but you see bands like Guns N' Roses who have posted all their summer tour dates, and then they announced that run for Australia in the fall. And that's very cool. I would wish with my heart that those shows go on, but I'm my
That's a
optimism
little
is
cup
very
is half
low.
full, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little, and it might be a little bit of the, casting out the carrot on the string and saying, "Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on."
Absolutely.
But as far as Guns N' Roses covers bands go, I think you're all set. It's business as usual, right? Or was that the band you were doing your gig with over the
Yeah.
weekend?
Well, so my GNR tribute was supposed to play Saturday night, and then the US got hit with a shit ton of snow just across the entire country. And we had two guys coming from Nashville, Phil and Jeremy from Ace's band were going to be filling in for us that night. And so
Okay, yeah.
we had them coming from Nashville. Our drummer was coming from Detroit. Our singer was coming from Cleveland. So just with
Damn.
a foot of snow and two or three more storms on the way, it was just unsafe for the band to try and convene, especially right now. Right now is not the time to be adding extra pressure onto a gig. So it was a close gig for me, about an hour. I'm in Lexington, right next to Louisville. So I took my 3-piece cover band over there, and we were just playing like Zeppelin and Sabbath, all the good stuff. So it was a fun night.
Yeah. Well, I live in Europe, but trust me, we heard all about the snow. We heard all about the weather, and we heard all about Texas. No doubt.
Absolutely.
It made the news big time over here.
That's great. That's one thing I wanted to ask you a little bit about is I'm talking to you from Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. What's everything kind of like over there right now?
Right now it's pretty much like you guys were last week all the time for the next 3 or 4
Okay.
months. You know, the snow just started to melt the last couple days, but we've had about, a couple feet. But I shouldn't say that because I'm in Sweden, right? So I should say 2 or 3 meters of snow. But
That's right. That's good for our American audience right here.
yeah, it's actually be 1 meter. 3 feet is 1 meter. It's closer to a yard.
You already lost me.
Yeah. Well, weren't we all supposed to learn the metric system at one point when I was growing up? That was supposed to be the one thing that America was supposed to, sort of adapt to, and that didn't even happen. So
I think we were supposed to learn a lot of stuff.
It's a superior measurement system. I will go on record with saying that after living in Europe as many years as I have, Americans, you don't know how much easier the metric system is. I mean, of course, I learned about the metric system, in my sort of rebellious times because, I know how many grams are in a quarter ounce. I know how many, if you catch my drift.
Absolutely.
I know an eighth in an ounce, I believe is 3.5 grams. Am I still right with that?
I think
so.
Yeah, 3.5 snake. Yeah. My kid
might know it as an 8 ball.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Welcome to the show today, everybody. This is what we're getting into.
Everybody's up. Everybody's up.
The real rock star stories right here. You go. That's perfect. So what have you been doing to keep you busy during this downtime a lot? I know you've got your podcast in the trenches. I know you give guitar lessons little. Is that something you've been doing a lot during this downtime?
I try to put together, I didn't try, I intended to do it, and then we achieved doing it, a guitar system. Me and a few of the guys from our RGA called the Roxie Guitar Army team. We have a guy named Vic Chalfant, Robbie Miller, Scotty Hagan, and we have Dave Rattenberry. And of course, Federica's on our social media coordinator as well. So we thank everybody on that team. But we came up with this thing called the System 12 guitar method. And we are trying to spread it out to as many people that want to start their guitar journey. Doesn't matter how old you are. It's blends sort of mentors like myself, and then we have this thing called the System 12-week challenge, where that's where Robbie and Dave come in, and they are very supportive with that. And it sort of combines mentorship and then all this really cool tech that's out there now to learn, and pretty much all my experience in sort of guitar hacks that I put into the system so that you can actually start learning how to play guitar within 12 weeks. That's why it's called the 12 system.
That's great. Now, from doing that, is that where you kind of stemmed the Free Riff Friday that you do on
Yes, it
Instagram?
was. Yeah, I mean, the Free Riff Friday, I'm just always trying to, I think, come up with basically different names to do the same shit. Isn't that rock and roll? In the end, at the end of the day, it's like, well, let's repackage this and call it that. But I thought Free Riff Friday had a good angle to it, um, because I would basically teach on Instagram maybe a very popular riff that people had wanted to learn, but they didn't ever have someone to sit down there with them and show them. And you know, I'll be honest with you, Instagram's not the easiest platform to teach on. It's most people are watching it from their mobile, and then unfortunately it's the guitar is backwards. If you're a lefty, it works out perfect. But I feel that we can sort of get you interested and inspired with Free Riff Friday. But if you really want the good stuff, then you go check out System 12, because that's all in HD and it's all multi angles and it's got all this cool tech that has, a virtual fretboard on the tech so that you can actually it's almost like playing
Okay.
Guitar Hero. It's almost like playing Guitar Hero, but with a real instrument, and you're actually learning music as well. So I'm really proud of the System 12 and what we've been able to do with it, and all these other shows that we're doing. Free Riff Friday is a good concept. Ball Talk was not as good as a concept. It didn't last as long, but I was
I don't
trying
remember that one.
well, Ball Talk was, well, for one, it's got a very suggestive name, and for two, I was trying to get because the European sort of contingency of the RGA, or an Australian, is very cool, very strong, very dedicated, and we love them. But they don't know that much about American NFL football. So I
Okay.
was trying to educate, because I'm a big NFL fan, and I feel that it was time that I try to teach as much as I could, like the way I teach guitar, teach some NFL football. And yeah, it kind of failed miserably, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to try next season again. All right.
So who's your football team?
Oh, my team is always going to be the Raiders. It doesn't matter
Oh
what city.
no.
Yep. It doesn't matter what city you put it in front of. I mean, don't tell me you're close enough to KC to be a KC fan, or what are you?
I grew up like an hour south of Pittsburgh, so
Oh, so you're a Steeler fan.
yeah. So the Raiders, that's just like a taboo word in my household around here.
You know what? For me, you got to realize things. I mean, especially now that you guys, I don't know if you got a quarterback anymore.
Oh, he's coming back. They just announced
of course
yesterday.
He's coming back. All right, they're going to rebuild him. He's going to be like the $6 million man. He's actually the $6 billion man, right? But the thing is, I feel that things kind of did, for such an amazing start to that season, was 11-0, and then just to see things go south like that, those are things hard to come back from. So you might have some seasons that might take some building up, like the Raiders have done over the last couple seasons. We're getting better and better. Our record gets better and better.
You
But
think Derek Carr is coming back this year?
If you really want to have a little impromptu ball talk, I'd love to talk about that. I feel that Derek Carr, man, when he hurt his dick, that was a hard one, because wow, that all those words together didn't sound so good. But yeah, but when he hurt his groin and in that game, I thought it was like season over, possibly career over, because it really looked bad. It looked like someone just basically reached down his throat and grabbed his entire, package out through his throat. It was not good. But he came back the next week, so that was insane. So the thing is, Derek Carr wasn't really the problem of the Raiders this year, so hopefully he won't be judged on the record, but more upon his performance. I thought he did the best he could do with what he was given. He had no help on the offensive line. I mean, he was constantly getting pressured. And the defensive line on the other end, they gave no pressure to opposing quarterbacks, except for the two times, the one time that we beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and the second time that we would have beat them if Casey didn't have the ball on the last possession of the game. So I feel that, you got to strengthen the lines and then get some receivers that Carr can throw to besides our tight end and besides, Josh Jacobs, because those guys are set. But who knows, it's the NFL. Darren Waller might be on another team next year if the trade looks right. I mean, they've tried for a couple of years to build something, and I think they want it now, but nothing takes
Well, Gruden
nothing
came
is
in there
overnight.
and stripped two of their best players as soon as he got in there, with Khalil Mack and then Amari Cooper getting sent out of
But the
town.
thing is about that trade, I mean, I love it that you know about those trades and stuff like that, because that trade allowed us so much money to get and to get the picks. Didn't we get like three or four different picks off of Chicago for that Khalil Mack trade?
Who did
And
they
then
get used on?
Huh?
Who did the picks get used on though?
We got Josh Jacobs was one of them.
Okay.
So he's
okay.
been the best out of all the picks. We had linemen. I mean, obviously there's going to be some sport guys out there going, "What the hell are you guys talking about?" I know way more about that. But I do study my team. I study. The funny thing is I like comedic sort of sports guys almost more than I like the real analytic guys. So there's two guys on Instagram and YouTube that I follow. One is and talk about really having to swallow my pride every time I watch him, because I think he's great, but he's a huge Denver Bronco fan. But it's a guy named Brandon Perona, I believe it is. It's called That's Good Sports. He has an amazing show. And then Bob McCleary, he does a bunch of he does that voice where he'll do overdubs to sport links and football plays, and he's great.
Okay.
What's his name? Bob. You guys got to check him out.
I
But the
definitely
deal
check
is,
them out.
yeah, but here's the thing. This guy Bob is part of this fan controlled football league. He owns a team called the Zappers,
Oh,
which has a
I've heard a
season.
little bit about this. Johnny Manziel is playing in that league, right?
Johnny
Yeah.
Manziel is on the Zappers. He's on
Okay.
Bob owns the team, and it's, to be honest with you, I like the concept of it, but it is really niche right now. And who knows, maybe it could grow up, it could grow into something kind of cool, because I feel that every single year, like my kids, they have no interest, not just because we're here in Europe, but even though they know what a, rabid football fan I am, they don't really have any interest in the sport. Where I feel, if you can bring some of that new age stuff, some of the new school stuff, like the way that video games and interchangeable everything's like sort of, trading, sort of like the way the NFL is going. I think if you get into that sort of game, then maybe kids will get more interested in it, and we'll be able to continue the sport. It's a great sport no matter what. I played it. I don't know if you played football growing up, but I don't know what kind of sports you played growing up.
I played football up until high school, and then the only sport I played in basketball, or in high school, excuse me, was basketball. I just got tired of getting the shit beat out of me playing football all the time. Then I stopped growing, and I was like, okay, I'm like a foot shorter than everybody else now. So
Right. There was like one summer I felt I was pretty good at sports. I'd gotten to the point, because I was a lefty, and to be a lefty, you know, it's a good position for baseball if you're first base. So that was my sort of position. And I did pretty good in little league, and I learned how to be a switch hitter. I learned how to bat left and right. So it was kind of cool. I felt I was getting better. Then I tried out for the high school team and just got my ass kicked. Yeah. Cause I was never going to be big enough to play football. So I was always going to be that guy that sort of, was the fan, but I did, play sort of, God, man, we dangerous games we played when I was growing up, especially when it would rain out. We want it to be muddy, because we go out there and we play these, tackle football games with no, there was no pads or no helmets, and it wasn't flag football. It wasn't anything. It was nothing safe about it.
oh,
And
absolutely. I think I probably had more injuries doing shit like that than actually like in organized sports.
that's funny.
Well, that's great. So after we've ran everybody off talking about football for half an hour, just kidding. That's, they get what they get when they come here. So I want to ask you a little bit about some of this new music you've been pumping out. You put out the final single off this album you've been working on for a couple of years now, from what it looks like. the Uh-Oh song came out in January. Can you tell everybody a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the album is called Imagine Your Reality, and I'm really happy that I was able to make it last as long as I was able to, because it was exactly what I had planned from the beginning. Um, I wanted to put out an album and give each song its sort of due. You know, I
Okay.
wanted to give its own little spotlight because I think as musicians, you know, maybe we fall in love too much with our own music and our own songs, but by the time we release it on the on an album, we're like, every song on this album is going to be great.
Yeah.
But I really wanted every song to at least get, you know, recognition and get the chance to be heard. So I said I would make a vinyl album. Scotty Hagen, who's on the RGA, he also runs a great record company called Bellyache Records. Um, he designed this whole vinyl package with you know, different color vinyls, three different gate folds.
Oh,
The
wow.
album cover was interchangeable, so you could imagine your own album cover. You'd had three different types of album covers, and I think four at the very end. But I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff that he did with the packaging. So that was going to be the tangible thing that I wanted everyone to get in their hands, you know, sort of listening to it with big fat headphones like you and I have on right now, and sort of, you know, just have that experience. But at the same
Absolutely.
time, I was going to release a single and a lyric video for each song separately and space them out over the course of, you know, I didn't think it would last this long, but it lasted up until, like you said, January. So we started releasing songs. I think the first one was with Robin Zander guest vocaled on a cover that I did called California Man, which Cheap Trick had actually covered on their Heaven Tonight album. So I was always been a huge Cheap Trick fan. So just to have Robin Zander as lead vocalist was pretty, you know, one of those bucket list things I was really excited about. And we kept releasing singles, and up until January, where another member of the RGA, I mentioned him earlier, Dave Rattenberry, he directed this last video, and you can check it out on my YouTube Ryan Roxie official channel. But that came together with a bunch of help from people that have been supporting us, you know, even before the pandemic. You know, we had, we call her Officer Burkholder. We used some of her footage for the video. We used, I think, some of Federica's footage for the video. Who else did we use? Maybe Vic Chalfant. We used some of his photos. And then Dave Rattenberry had a bunch of footage and photos of his own. So he edited it together real nice. And that's the latest song. So hopefully we'll be able to go out and play it live pretty soon someday.
That's awesome. And you talked about something I wanted to ask you about, which
Yep.
was Mr. Robin Zander coming in and
Yeah.
singing some vocals on California Man. How did that come about? And really, what was it like working with him on that?
Well, working with him, I'd like to say that, yeah, well, we hung out and became best friends, and, you know, we went out every night, and we barely could sing the next day. No, it wasn't like that at all. But I have known Robin for a bunch of years now. Um, Back in 2004, Cheap Trick and Alice Cooper did a tour together. So that was literally my first sort of touring with your idols sort of thing. And then, you know, we've sort of managed to keep in touch and sort of, you know, always be friendly with each other over the years. And just so happens that one of our tour managers or stage manager, Caesar, lives in the same town as Robin, lives actually real near him. And I asked him, I said, do you think Robin would sing on this song? Because I really want to do a cover of California Man, because I am a California man. I really legitimately am. I grew up in the Bay Area. And he goes, yeah, let me ask him. So he did. And then we went through emails and phone conversations and said, hey, you know, send me over the track. I'll sing it in my studio over here, and then you can send it back to Sweden. So yeah, we hung out about as virtually as you can hang out. But then we did get to see them on that subsequent tour while we were touring with Alice. And he was really happy about it, and I was really happy about it as well.
That's awesome, let alone to work with him at all, but to do an iconic song like California Man with Xander, that's gotta be such a trip, man.
Well, for him to sing the first line and then I get to sing the second one, I mean, there's nothing that comes. I mean, the only thing that comes close to that is being able to play Hotel California with Don Felder.
I was gonna say
And
that's absolutely seems like one of those teenage fantasy moments where where you're listening to the record in your room. It's like one day I'll be on stage singing this song with them.
well, I got to sing Hotel California with Don Felder on stage
Oh wow.
when we were backing him up for some sort of corporate event or something like that. And, you know, I was at sound check and he was singing. He goes, my voice is a little tough. And I go, well, you know what, if you want, I can sing the verse. He goes, yeah, do it. So I sang it during sound check. And then when we actually played the song live, we're doing, it was enough for me to play Hotel California with one of the Eagles, right? That was enough. That was
Absolutely.
already, check. But then, while we're on stage, he sings the first verse and he looks over at me and and gives me that look and he goes, yeah, sing the second. So I got to sing this, I got to sing the second verse and it was like,
That's
shit, that was
awesome.
great. And so I got to sing the second and I think I got to sing the fourth. There's
That's
four verses
awesome.
in that song.
When
And then of
was
course,
this?
it was a couple of years ago. It was at a corporate party for what was it for? The Starkey Foundation. It was for they make hearing aids,
Okay.
which I'll probably be using them
Dude,
someday.
I'm already there. The tinnitus struggle is real. It is very real.
That's funny.
Well, that's great. So one little fun, I keep fun questions thrown in here all throughout the entire thing. So we talked about Robin Zander. Have you heard the new Cheap Trick single?
You know what? I've been waiting to get, actually, I'll be honest with you, I'm waiting to get a new pair of headphones and
Okay.
hopefully they'll come soon because I want to listen to it in all its glory.
Okay.
I have listened to some really good music lately, but Cheap Trick's new record, I have not. And I want to give it the proper sort of listening that, I remember listening to Cheap Trick growing up, but I have listened to some really cool new music. I feel that Alice Cooper's son, Dash, he's
Okay.
released a really cool single called Don't Lie to Me,
Okay.
or maybe it's just Lie to Me. I think it's Lie to Me. And I think I'll get corrected in the chat. I'm not being able to watch it right now, but I'm sure I'll get corrected really quickly of which name it is. But yeah, it's Dash Cooper is a great song. His band's called Co-op, COOP.
Okay.
And then the other song that I thought was amazing that I just heard in the last week was Wolfgang Van Halen's new stuff. It was really
Absolutely.
like I've only heard two songs off that album, and I think that might be all that's released as of this second. But
Yeah.
both of them were killer, just friggin', just the type of music that I like. So go check out that stuff as well. And
That video for Distance that's a tearjerker, man. That is
oh, no doubt, no
one
doubt.
hard video to make it through.
No. And imagine he has to sing it on every single radio morning show, on every single late night show, on every single
Absolutely.
primetime show. And he's going to be singing that song probably,
For the
for
rest
the
of his
next
life.
6 months.
Well,
Well,
for the rest
yeah,
of his
but I mean,
life.
at
Yeah.
least on this promo tour, he'll be singing
Yeah.
it. Oh, a shitload. So yeah, good luck for him. But hopefully I'll get him on the podcast. He's one of my guests. He's one of my target guys that I'd like to have on and be able to talk some guitar and music with him.
That's
And of
great.
course, speaking of new music, there's this goofy old guy that wears a lot of eye makeup and says he comes from Detroit. And, so apparently he has got a new record coming out. I don't know. So I've
You
heard.
should try to get in a band with that guy. You guys would play
I should
together
give him a
really
call,
well.
right?
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
probably needs some work. He probably needs a little break. So yeah, I think I should give him
I'll put in a good
Alice's
word
new
for you.
record. Alice's new record is going to be killer. And we actually are having a band meeting because this is being live streamed right now. So
Absolutely.
if anybody wants to check out this thing on Saturday that we're doing, it's a pretty cool concept. I don't think any band has done it yet. There's been a lot of isolation videos, and I think people kind of know that whole concept at this point. But on Saturday, the entire touring Alice Cooper band, that's me, that's Chuck, that's Tommy, that's Nita, that's Glenn, and it's Alice and Nurse Cheryl. So, what did I say? Is that all seven? Is that all seven of us? We are all going to be on the same screen doing a band meeting where we haven't
Okay.
caught up because a lot of times what we do is we just, somebody will start a thread, someone will start a text thread, and we'll go through the texting, for a while, and then, just to catch up. But nobody's really seen each other, like at least on one screen since the whole pandemic thing started. And I don't think any band has actually invited, the public into their band meeting. And that's exactly what we're doing on Saturday. So, you can go onto my, Ryan Roxie official YouTube, and all the details are there, and you can sign up and set a reminder for it. Of course it's free, but it'll be streamed on YouTube, Facebook Live, and a few other platforms, I believe, as well. So yeah, that's going to be fun this weekend.
That's awesome. I'm definitely going to try to check that out myself. I had seen something get posted about that a day or two ago, so it definitely piqued my interest a little bit.
And it's early enough in the States that you can still do your very unsafe, uncontrolled gigs that later that evening. Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
You can still go. I guess you can go biosuit up, but you don't have to wear a biosuit to the band hangouts. It's all virtual, and it's going to happen, I think, in the States, because we wanted to make it friendly for everybody to watch it, both European and the US, and maybe we might have some Australian listeners. I think unfortunately Australian listeners kind of get screwed on the time sort of.
Well, they're always
the time zones.
It's always odd wherever else in the world.
It's always tomorrow for them, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, like, for me and Tommy, who are going to be doing it from Europe, it'll be in the evening time. So it'll be around 9 o'clock European time. But then if you're on the East Coast, it's 3 o'clock East Coast. And I think you say Kentucky, or is that
Yes.
where you're in? So,
Yeah.
So then you're on, so it'll be at 2 p.m. because you're Central time, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm on the eastern side of Kentucky. Central starts a little past Louisville, so the state's got.
Are you trying to tell me that the state is divided?
It is, but not.
It literally is divided.
The left and right side now.
But you got Mitch McConnell. I believe everything's divided at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't shock me that you'd have that with Kentucky. That's
right. There's a 6-part episode in itself. Jesus.
Yeah. Let's not talk politics. I think the farthest we go is talking football and sort of our Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Raiders. But I've always looked at the Steelers, because that's Chuck Garrick's favorite team, is the Steelers, and mine's the Raiders. But I've always looked at the Steelers as sort of like an East Coast Raiders, working class.
Well, I mean, back in the 70s, if the Steelers weren't in the Super Bowl, it was the Raiders.
That's exactly what. Yeah. And you guys were illegitimately in the Super Bowl because of that. It wasn't a catch.
Oh no,
it wasn't a catch. It was an illegal.
There's not enough footage to overturn the call.
What are you talking about? They've shown this is a Brooder film, man. We've broken it down frame by frame. It's like when Tom Brady. Go look at his interview. Watch Tom Brady's interview after the Tuck Rule game, that snow game,
yeah,
where they ask him if it was a fumble. And the look on his face is priceless. So you know what? Tom Brady has the Oakland Raiders to thank for his legacy.
Absolutely.
At least kickstarting it. He was going to do something regardless. I mean, the guy's just like, he's just
realistically, I think the person that kickstarted his legacy was it the Bills they were playing when Bledsoe got knocked the fuck out and Brady went in.
Well, that's the thing. Bledsoe, he was going to be, he was a backup, Brady, right? And then Bledsoe got hurt. He had might have just signed a big contract, or was about ready to sign a big contract. Gets knocked out. But then no. I mean, that's fine. But the thing is, dude, if it wasn't for that play, that miracle Tuck Rule unfair play,
it was a bullshit play.
Raiders would have gone. I think that was the AFC championship, or was it a conference championship?
That was totally I think that was totally the conference.
I think it was the conference game, because why else would Oakland go all the way to New England? So it had to be the conference.
Yeah.
And that would have been a Super Bowl, and then who knows? It would have been two different stories at that point. And was Rich Gannon the quarterback at that point?
Yeah, Rich Gannon, Tim Brown, Jerry Rice were all over playing.
Well, I know we had Woodson. I know we had Charles Woodson at that point, because he was the one that knocked the motherfucking ball out. Don't make me go back there. No. See, my wife would laugh at me right now, because she's like, Ryan, you don't remember what happened 10 minutes ago, but you can remember the names of the football players on the 1990,
Absolutely.
Raiders.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah. You're right.
No, I can totally relate to that sentiment. I can remember football players who probably never even took a snap in the NFL. But, like you said 10 minutes ago, I don't remember who I was texting. So.
Well, go check out Brandon's That's Good Sports. I think you'll like that show on YouTube. I'll give him a plug, even though he's a Denver fan.
That's
But
awesome.
he makes really good content. But yeah, I mean, this is what we like to do, obviously.
Well, speaking of making good content, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your show, In the Trenches. You've been doing it for about 2.5 years now, if I'm correct.
A little bit, actually. I mean, are you talking about In the Trenches, the podcast?
Yes.
We've only been doing it for a little over a year.
Oh, okay. So I
had this notification that Wikipedia doesn't always tell the truth. I'm not sure, but the thing is, we might have released our first episode at the end of around 3/4 into 2019, I believe, 2019. So it's been, a year and a half, I guess. And the pandemic actually really kicked us in the butt to get it to the next level. And luckily at that point, Vic Chalfant, our producer of the show, had the time, and he put in the effort, and everybody put in the effort to promote it and make this thing what it is. I told you, we have Federica as our social, coordinator, but we have also so much help. Kanak helps out a lot with the promo and stuff. Lily McCartney. It really is a collective effort with people that support the show and spread the word. And it just goes to show you that you don't have to be the mightiest of media companies to make a little dent in if you're really passionate about what you do. And I think we're all pretty focused on making this podcast bigger and bigger. So, like I said, our guests keep getting more interesting and more classic. And I mean, actually not more classic. They just keep, continue to be very entertaining. And now I'm moving to a point where I really want to do all this research because I want to be prepared and ask them questions that maybe they haven't been asked in the interview for a little while. We just had JJ French on from Twisted Sister.
I was watching that.
Luckily I could get a question in. I said hello basically, and then he just went off and talked. So he's well versed at doing interviews and stuff but the stories that came out in the hour that we spent together were really incredible, because he was dropping names every name that he would drop would be some multi-platinum iconic artist. And these were guys that he was, watching growing up as a kid, at bars and, just face to face in clubs and stuff. So quite fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. The craziest part about that whole band is you guys mentioned it on the show is they started in the early 70s, but didn't put any material out for 10 years after that.
And he said, though, because it wasn't time wasted, it was us getting good. We
had
to play gigs to get good. So they played thousands and thousands of gigs before they made a record. Now, you could never do that in Los Angeles, because that would be what? I mean, 2 albums is a huge, long career for a Los Angeles band, at least when I was, sort of living there and stuff. I find that happens much more in Sweden, where they have a long time to get together, get their focus, get what the band's about. Then it's some bands don't make a record for 5-6 years, and then they make their first record and stuff. So it's a different pace at different parts of the world.
That's awesome. So I'm gonna go completely off topic here. Something I wanted to ask you about, a record you played on that turned 20 years old this past October. And
did you post about it just recently?
I think I posted 20 minutes before we went live about the record.
I think I'm looking at that post right now because I'm trying to see. I'm on your site. Oh, there I am. Okay, because I was going. Wait a second, who's on there right now?
We haven't been recording this entire time. I forgot to press start. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh boy.
But
so
about that second Slash record. I know that Gilby kind of had a hand in, I'd read that he helped get you the gig in Alice a little bit. Did Gilby have any hand in helping you link up with Slash for that record?
Not really. I met actually Slash and started jamming with Slash because of Alice. So
Okay,
in that way that I was fully aware of Gilby's involvement in the first Snakepit record because I was on the
absolutely.
road with Gilby when Slash and Gilby were making, were doing like sort of they were getting songs together, but it was via, Slash was on the road, or maybe Slash was back in LA, and Gilby, I was on the road with Gilby as his guitar player. So I remember all those conversations going back and forth of them putting that album together. And then I was able to get into Alice Cooper Band, and that was very cool. Gilby said some very nice words about it, to sort of open the door for me. Bobby from Mates said some great words. Mates is a big rehearsal studio in Los Angeles. So I had a lot of, cool words, put into Alice's ear where I was able to at least get the audition and then, go out and get it myself. I mean, at the end of the day, I had to do something. I had to sort of, I had to be good. You can say all the words you want, but if you're not good at the audition, then bye bye. So I got in that band, and I was very happy about it. But the first gig that we ever did was in Cabo San Lucas at Sammy Hagar's
Sammy,
club.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was the first time I ever jammed on stage with Alice. But it was also the very first time I'd ever jammed with Sammy, Rob Zombie, and Slash, who came down. And that's where Slash and I, we'd sort of known each other in passing through the hair metal scene when I was in Electric Angels. He was in Guns N' Roses, and I was in Candy, and we kind of knew each other in passing, but it wasn't. We weren't like kinship or friends. Then somehow we really, not somehow, it was very natural that we connected musically on stage that night in Cabo, and we basically just started playing off each other ever since. And then I get some phone calls from him and his manager, and basically it was all good stuff. I mean, he was saying, "Look, Slash really wants to uh, try writing with you and do some stuff. So what do you say?" And I said, "Yeah, no doubt." And then we put Snakepit together, and it was a long period of time going through a lot of singers. That's always seems to be a struggle in Los Angeles for some reasons, to find that lead singer. But when we did find Rod Jackson, he was the one. There's no doubt that he was the one. And we put out that record, and nothing but like energy. I feel, even though we had recorded it 3 times, basically we had done demos for each of the songs. Then we recorded the whole thing with Jim Mitchell, engineering and producing it at Snakepit, which was Slash's studio in his house. And then what we did was we recorded a third time with Jack Douglas, who was what was quite cool to have him as a producer, because he produced so many cool albums that we look up to. First two Cheap Trick records, Aerosmith, all that good
Absolutely. Uh, so that's one thing I definitely wanted to touch on that you mentioned is you actually got to help out with the songwriting process on this record. So I would imagine that, a lot of the riffs were the Slash was bringing those in, but your songwriting part of it, were you getting to like say, hey, this should be the bridge, this should be the chorus? Were those your type of inputs, or what really was your hand in the songwriting process?
It was really like everybody had a hand in the songwriting for that band. It really was, because it was like Matt Log, the drummer, would come in with an amazing guitar riff, and we'd be like, shit, that's a great guitar. So we build a song around that. We had the luxury of spending a lot of time at Snakepit Studios. It's a little bit of a blessing, a little bit of a curse, because it could be a very dark place, a very decadent place to spend 90% of your time. But we would literally go there in the morning and not leave until way past midnight, and then we'd usually end up going to some sort of bar around
I
Beverly
would say
Hills.
this is back still in the late '90s, so Slash was still a little more social back then as far as.
Oh, dude, yeah, lots of stuff going on. But the thing is, but the thing was, every band member, like Johnny Griparic, came up with some really great riffs, and such a monster bass player himself. And, you know, between him and Matt being such a great, strong rhythm section, it really helped, you know, for Slash and I to write parts where we could write off each other, and like Slash would show me a riff and then I could come up with a counter riff, or I had a chord progression that I felt maybe Slash's soloing over would take it to the next level. And that's exactly what happened. What's the song, the ballad on it, back to the moment, I believe that's the song. That was one of those chord progressions that I had, and I'd written, you know, a lot of the song, you know, a lot of the parts of the song, verses and pre-choruses, and maybe we worked on the chorus a little bit together, but I had a pretty good chunk of it done. But then when you know, it was like here, but then I brought it into the rest of the guys. It got up to here. And then when Slash finally put that solo on it, it went up, you know, to the stratosphere. It's some of my favorite Slash guitar playing on any record. And that's, you know, says
It's
a
a
lot,
very
because
underrated record. It is
well,
absolutely
the
underrated.
guys played on some monster songs and stuff. And so, you know, the fact that he played on, you know, that album as well as he did was really cool.
Absolutely.
It was lucky for us at that time. We got Slash, I think, some of his best playing since Appetite, and I'm not sure if he'd agree with that, but because I mean, but I really feel that everyone in the band really knew that Slash was, you know, he was definitely focused on getting some good performances with those solos, and there's some really good stuff in there.
Absolutely. And I totally relate to that sentiment of that might have been his best rock and roll guitar playing since Appetite, because you look at the Snakepit records, like It's 5 o'clock Somewhere, the first one, and then the second one, you were on Eight Life Grand.
That's right.
When you think of Slash's guitar playing, you think of more of the style that's on those two records than per se the Use Your Illusion records. Not taking anything away from those obviously massive albums, but if we're talking about Slash playing to like his truest form, I think you're getting more of that on those Snakepit records than the Illusion records.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I had heard the whole story about the Illusion process and how that was so 180 degrees different from how the Appetite was, you know, sort of recorded and wrote, and the whole thing. It was two different types of things. It went from everybody being in the same room together for hours and hours and being stinky and sweaty and
Not even
smelly,
a room,
and
mostly like a
creating
storage
something,
unit.
yeah, and creating something out of like, you know, 100, you know, different versions finally become this one great song. And then to going from that sort of, you know, songwriting process to FedExing riffs back and forth via, you know, home studio recordings. I mean, it's a huge difference to go to, but imagine the huge amount of success that, you know, came between those two
Yeah.
albums. So I mean, it is kind of easy to understand how there could be problems with all that success, no doubt. But
Absolutely.
what I'm saying is that the Slash's Snakepit record, we really did go back to that. You know, it wasn't as sweaty, it wasn't as bad smelling, because I think Slash, you know, he by that time you know, he afforded designer deodorant and all that stuff. We all had, you know, we all kind of smelled okay. But I mean, we were in that Snakepit studio room for at least, you know, 9-10 hours a day for years, you know.
It's awesome. That was one thing I wanted to ask you about, because anytime Slash talks about those records, he always tries to fix the misinterpretation that those are solo records. He's always very adamant about, no, the whole band was involved very much on both of those records. So
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate him doing that too, because there couldn't be anything uh, more correct than the. I can only speak of the Ain't Life Grand album, because, you know, it was such a collective. You know, it was such a collective effort, and everybody contributed. You know, Rod Jackson and that voice. You know, even Teddy Zigzag, who would come in and play his keyboard and Hammond parts and just add to this level of like, fuck, more music. It was already a musical album, but then Teddy just took it up to even a higher level. So, you know, I was really lucky to play with that caliber of musicians during that time of my life.
that's awesome. And like I said, I throw some fun little questions in here occasionally throughout the
Let's do it.
episode. So the first 4 or 5 years that Slash was out with the Conspirators with our buddy Todd Kearns and those guys,
Oh yeah, I love Todd. Yeah, he's been on
there
the podcast. He's a good guy.
absolutely, which we'll dive into that into in a second. So there were 2 songs off the Ain't Life Grand record that were very heavy in the set for those first couple of years. Which
Serial Killer, right? I know they did Serial Killer for one.
well, I know Mean Bone and Been There Lately were the
Oh
two
shit!
that
Okay, because I actually saw Slash and the Conspirators do. The name's so long, it's hard for me to say. Slash featuring Miles Kennedy with special guest
SMKC is what everybody seems to call it
just go for that.
nowadays.
Let's just go with that. No, but I mean, it is a long name, but I did see that long named band, which is, Slash and his band, which is fine. Not throwing any shade on any of them.
I feel like you could say each of their first names like Slash, Mile, Todd, Britton. It would still be less syllables than the actual band name.
That might be true. But you know what? Great band, great players.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, they did a great version of Serial Killer. And that was another off the Ain't Life Grand album. So it's cool that they did Mean Bone and what was the other one you said?
Been There Lately. They actually put out a live version of Been There Lately whenever they did the concert in Stoke-on-Trent in 2011 or 12. That was one of the tunes that made the live record.
Nice.
But
I think I've received 27 cents in royalties from that. Thank you, Spotify.
Perfect. There you go. That's the come up. I hope I can have this level of success one day. But one thing I wanted to ask about with those 2 songs is, like I said, just a fun little question. Out of those 2 songs, which one do you prefer?
Been There Lately, because that riff down,
so great. Yeah.
It was like, it's such a Slash riff.
Do you remember him coming into the room with that riff?
No, I don't. That's why I'm biting my tongue, because I'm going, shit. Could that have been a song that that Johnny or Matt could have brought in and then Slashified it? Or I mean, it definitely wasn't my riff, because that sort of off tempo, like sort of all on the upbeat. That's all Genius Slash doing his thing, and his sense of rhythm is just very, very unique and special. But I did have some cool counterparts to that. But it just out of the gate, that's just the way the album starts. With it's just, what you're in for as soon as you hear that first song. If you don't like the first 10 bars of that song, then you might not like the record. But I think you're gonna like the record, because it's just like, fuck, we're in for a ride right when you hear that song.
Absolutely, it's a great way to kick off the record. And you brought up Teddy Zigzag a second ago. I'd assume that's him doing the choppy piano during the chorus part during that.
He's he's played with the best guys. He's played all those parts with like the originals. He's played with Chuck Berry.
Absolutely.
He's done all this stuff.
So I want to kind of get off the Slash thing for a second, but we brought Gilby up a second ago, another GNR alumni that you've worked with. You guys were in a band called Candy back in the day. Do you remember the first time that you met Gilby? Because he wasn't an original member, if I'm correct. Do you remember him being brought into that band?
Well, he was in the original band. Gilby was definitely in the original band as far as the success of Candy. He was the one that got signed when they got signed to Polygram. And so he was in the band, like definitely as a full member. They were a 4-piece, and their singer Kyle was the one that they were saying, well, maybe Kyle's not going to be the singer on the second record. Okay. So that's when they brought me in.
Okay. So you were there on the second record. I had my facts a little messed up on that.
I mean, it's incestuous. It's Los Angeles. The fact that I got into the band at one point had a little bit more to do image-wise than it was, because they hadn't heard me really play. They just heard that there's this guy, running around LA with 2 feet tall, black spiked hair and the same black leather jacket that you guys wear. Why don't you go try him out? And why don't you see what happens? So, they actually, saw me before they actually, and said, we're interested in you, before they actually heard me. But then I think when we all got together and played, it was like, oh, you like the same bands that we do. You're somewhere in between like power pop and heavy metal. and that's kind of the way
Perfect.
Candy was sort of in, because it was never heavy. But they'd be associated, playing with bands like Wasp, but it was never too pop, because they were always a little bit more rock than the bands that they toured with, like Corey Hart or Rick Springfield. Even though Rick Springfield, I think, is a rock and roll artist, and I give him credit for that too. But it was like we sort of always towed that line of, like, a pop song, but really, really grossly distorted, heavy guitars. Okay, that's cool because it hurts my ears, but the song, I remember the song. So that was a good philosophy that we had with Candy. And Gilby, basically, we went again through the search of the singers, and we tried out everybody. I mean, everybody in Los Angeles that was around that could, that wanted to. So many different singers tried out. Ricky Rackman actually tried out for Candy. That's how Ricky and I ended
Okay.
up becoming friends. Um, but then ultimately, Gilby came back to sing for the band, and then we did a bunch of shows and touring with that lineup, and it was just the four of us at that point. And then finally, I don't know what happened. There was nothing, it wasn't tumultuous. There was nothing, no drama. There was no big breakup. It just, things kind of just like sort of splintered a little bit. And Gilby said, well, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to get in this band called, start this band called Kill for Thrills. And he did Kill for Thrills and put out a couple records, but shortly thereafter, Guns N' Roses picked him up, and then, he went on that ride for a long time. But the rest of us, we formed a band called Electric Angels, and we found a singer named Shane, and we ended up moving from Los Angeles to New York, which every band was coming to LA at that time. We did things actually the opposite. And for our situation, it worked out because we got signed within 3 shows in New York, and we were able to put out an album with Tony Visconti producing, and it was a cool time, no doubt. It was, and I'm
Very
happy
cool.
to be in that band. But it's you see it, you see the pattern. Like, one band sort of forms into another, and we kind of jam over here, and then one way I end up playing with Slash, and then but because of ultimately Alice, but that was through Gilby. So it's all, just be, I guess the bottom line is be cool whoever you're jamming with now, because they're going to get you your next gig.
Absolutely. Do you remember meeting Gilby for the first time?
Um, no, it was probably at an ice cream shop, because we called us the leisure guys, and Jonathan, who now is like, he's a mogul, he's an entertainment mogul, but
Perfect.
he manages Green Day and Courtney Love and
Okay.
the band Train. So he's a big time, manager, uh, music manager,
So
and
those are some nice
entertainment.
up and coming artists he's working with.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But right near Jonathan's house, where we had the recording studio and the rehearsal studio when we first started, there was a Baskin Robbins, and so
okay.
every, like clockwork, almost every afternoon we walk, we'd take our break and we go down and get ice cream. So I'm wondering if it was at an ice cream shop that we first. Well, no, we must have first met when they came to Madame Wong's West, which was a club in Los Angeles, to actually hear me play. They'd seen me, with the big spiked up hair and the black leather jacket. Now they're like, okay, can this guy actually play? And I think I was playing in a band at that time, a guy named Jeff Scott, really cool
Okay.
vocalist, kind of reminded me of Robin Zander, his voice, very cool dude. It was my first band, and they saw me from Jeff Scott, and then, I guess they saved me.
Awesome. That's very cool. So we brought it up earlier in the show, and I had written it down because I wanted to ask you about it. Your very first show with Alice Cooper, which was at Sammy Hagar's place in Cabo
Yeah, Cabo
Wabo.
Wabo.
Are there any specific instances that stick out from that gig? I know you said that was the first time you had seen Slash,
Tequila,
and yeah.
tequila, and like more tequila, I think. Yeah, I mean, everything you've heard about that club, and more, was that first gig, because you have to understand, it wasn't just my first gig with Alice. It was again the first time playing with all these other guest artists that came up. So, I'm tripping out a little bit. Sammy Hagar, you know, Rob Zombie, Slash is there, but then also there's cameras rolling because it's a VH1 special.
Oh, okay.
And there's friggin' microphones all mic'd up to our amps because it's also a live album, which became Fistful of Alice. So my very first gig, I ended up doing a first video show for VH1 and my first live album for Alice Cooper, and a ton of firsts. And then afterwards, I remember just celebrating, just in Cabo, because it's never really cold there. At least all the
Absolutely.
times I've been there, it's always very nice outside. So I just remember being out on the porch, sort of the veranda of Cabo Wabo, and looking over and seeing Rob Zombie making out with his wife, and they were happy and they were doing their thing. I was by myself, and I was just like, shit, this is my life now. I get to, like, look over and see guys like Rob Zombie making out with his girlfriend, and yeah, this is what I'm going to do now. And a week later we were on the road with the Scorpions, which was another sort of, you know, hero band of heroes that I listened to growing up. So ever since then, Alice has always opened some great doors for me, and always allowed me to do what I love to do for a living.
That's awesome. I love hearing stories like that where even though you've reached that point of success, you still have that clarity of like, this is what I've been trying to do. And, when you get to that point, you have that sense of, you feel, you have internal success that you feel proud of.
Well, I see it in the artists that I interview every week on In the Trenches. I really do. I see their, with their achievements, and I see all the stuff that they've done. And, everybody has a story. Everybody has a great story to tell. And as long as, and that's my job with In the Trenches, is to get those stories out there and hopefully inspire, people that are, living their own lives and coming up with their own stories, and maybe bashing it out in the clubs right now, going, man, this fucking is hard, it
Yeah,
sucks,
and a
because you
bunch
hear
of
all these.
unsafe shows, in Kentucky.
Yeah, but the thing is, you got to take the inspiration from these stories, and know that they've been there too. I've played many of those clubs that you're talking about, and I probably have played them more recently than you think. I know about tailgaters. I'm trying to think of the place in Louisville that we played. What was it called?
And say the big places there, Mercury Ballroom, Diamond Pub over there, Louisville Billiards Club, which is where I was at.
We played a
Uh,
gig. We played a gig on the last. It was, now maybe someone in the chat can check it out if they're listening to it. We played a gig in Louisville, Kentucky, that was sort of a half country bar, half sort of rock bar, and it was the rock bar that probably was the up and coming sort of, but they wanted to push, but I think it had gotten famous from being a country bar.
okay.
And man, I don't know. I, it's probably because I'm actually, having some of Louisville's finest right now. I think I'm having some Kentucky. I think Bullet is made in that. It might be made in Louisville. It's definitely, bourbon is definitely Kentucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it has to
So,
be made in Kentucky for it to be considered bourbon.
well, that's what this is. This is Bullet right now. So that's why it's causing me not to remember the name of this club. But let me tell you, it was pretty sparse. The audience, you talk about social distancing. Yeah, there was one person for every 1,000 feet,
Oh man,
because the place was big.
hey man, yeah, I mean, I can totally relate. Hell, I still do gigs like that sometimes. It's those are the shows that put hair on your chest.
Or, or or make you lose it on the top of your head. One or the other.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a little bit of both actually. So very cool.
Transplants hair.
Two last things real quick I wanted to ask you about while I've got you on here. It was actually a really good segue. So we just talked about, having those moments where you feel proud of the success that you've finally attained. And so last night I had our buddy Chip Enough on here, and I was
Chip, yeah.
telling him the story of, so me and Chip got to do a gig together this past December down in Florida. It was the Christmas Expo. And I kind of had one of those just, sit back moments and realize where you're at. And there was at one point we're sitting on the bus and it's just me, Chip, the drummer from my band, Rick Derringer, and Rick Derringer's wife. And we're just all sitting there watching Rick Derringer's wife make their dog dance. She would hold a treat up and it would just dance around on its back legs. And, I was just sitting there, and I kind of sit back and I'm like, I'm watching Rick Derringer's dog dance with Chip's enough right now. This is totally crazy.
And of course, it had to be Florida that you'd be doing the gig.
Yeah, absolutely.
What other state could you actually do a gig in December besides Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. But I wanted to ask you about Chip, because I know that you've had Chip on your show, In the Trenches.
Yes.
I like knowing how my friends have met each other. So I would, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear how you and Chip cross paths.
Chip and I met, it wasn't really under completely friendly sort of circumstances, because
Okay.
the bass player that I had in my band at that time, I was in a band I'd put together in New York City called The Emperor's New Clothes. And if you know anything about the story of The Emperor's New Clothes, that basically tells, it's something that you're not. And we had a lot of bravado, a lot of attitude, but we weren't really that great. We were learning, it's when I was learning to be a front man more so than just a guitar player. I was like trying to transition over being to as, fronting a band as well, which is a completely new type of gig. And then Stefan, my friend, Stefan Adika, he was playing bass and he has a lot of New York attitude. So the Nuff's Enough guys came to one of our shows, and Chip wanted to come up and jam with us a song because he's a big Beatles fan, and we did Beatles songs in the set. And Stefan was like, no, I'm not going to give up my bass. I'm not going to give this guy my bass, not this guy. And so they actually started out like, as a beef. Of course, years go by and they're like best friends now, and they're totally cool with each other. I think actually Chips has been on Stefan's podcast as well, but it didn't start out so well. But then I remember having an I think with Circus Magazine, I was able to go to the studio when they were recording that second record. I think Strength, that was the name of the record.
Yep.
And I was able to go sit in the studio and just watch a few of the mixing things. And I was just kind of like, this is really cool. But it wasn't really until, and then we'd see each other throughout the years, but it was always, I think Chip felt in the back of his mind, like, where's that other guy from New York that wouldn't let me play his bass? Where is he? But then, everything works itself out. And just this past year, Chip comes on the podcast and we have an amazing talk. And afterwards I go, man, I'd really like for you to play on a track. So he played on a track that I played guitar. He played bass. Producer Christopher Fallon played drums and actually did an amazing job producing it. And Eric Dover, first singer of Snakepit, he was the one that sang on it, and it's a killer version of a killer song, but we totally put it out underneath the radar, so you'd have to actually go and find it yourself. All right.
Yeah. Chip didn't know what the name of the band was last night, but he told everybody what the song was. So
okay, so
that's enough
knows
information.
The song,
yeah.
the name. So Chip will tell you the song. I'll give you the other half of the clue. The band is called the North UK.
Okay, well, we won't say the name of the song. That way they got to go watch both episodes.
You got to do your homework.
Yeah,
well, everyone's still going to go to Ryan Roxie official YouTube, because they got to sign up for this big, huge extravaganza of the Alice Cooper band meeting that's happening on Saturday.
Absolutely.
So hopefully everyone will.
Absolutely. Very cool. So one last person I wanted to ask you about, we brought him up a little bit during the episode earlier, Mr. Todd Kearns, my bandmate from Minefield. So I want to know how you and Mr. Kearns go back and how you guys met.
Dude, I was just a fan of Todd's just by watching him play and sing, and just like, because he's a killer singer, what a player. And he's one of those guys that does everything, right? And then I find out he's doing a podcast as well. And I'm saying, well, hey, let's combine forces with that. We jammed together a couple of times, I think, when he was doing the Vegas jam thing.
Raiding the Rock Vault. Was that what it was?
Was that what it was? Okay.
I know. Well, he's got a couple of different things. I know he does Raiding the Rock Vault, and then he's got his band Sin City Sinners, which is
we jammed with Sin City Sinners, one of the gigs that we did with Alex, because we pretty much play Vegas almost every year. Okay. 2020 was the only year that we haven't played it, and I can't remember how long. But Todd's a mover and a shaker, and he makes things happen. As you know, you play in a band with him, so I really like his attitude. his attitude is the right attitude for rock and roll. And I wish there was more of that out there. And, I think luckily from doing this podcast, I've realized that, you know, so many more musicians are much cooler than I might have assumed at the very beginning, so that's my bad. So the thing is, all these musicians that come on and tell their stories, it just endears me more. It makes me even be more inspired and much feeling lucky that I'm actually in their sort of orbit as well. So, hopefully Todd and I will do some more stuff in the future. And, whether it's with podcasting or whether it's actually playing, hopefully all of us will be doing stuff more on the playing side.
Absolutely. Very cool. We'll have to get you on the next Minefield record whenever we start doing that. That'll
Guess
get you
me out, dude. I love
that'll
it.
get you and Todd on the same track. So there you go. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Ryan, dude, it's been very cool getting to actually talk to you and pick your brain a little bit. It's been a very awesome chat. I think this is definitely going up there and one of my favorite episodes I've done. So
well, thank you, Brandon. You run it well. You're very hospitable. You like, and somehow I feel that there's no smoke coming in underneath that chair or underneath that door behind you, because you have it all securely locked. And I see all your vinyl, all your Kiss vinyl is very safe. All secured with that,
I got to keep it up on the walls away from the cats.
Cats don't like Kiss, or they just attack Kiss?
Well, I think it's just they see Peter and they want to hang out with him. I think that's what it is.
True. That's true. And then you got those 2 10-foot GNR posters that you'll hopefully end up using at some gig at one point in the next couple months.
We've got a rescheduled date for that, May 8th. So if anybody's listening and you're in Kentucky, May 8th, come and watch the GNR tribute. So it'll be
get your vaccine and go check out Brandon.
Absolutely. They're running a ticket deal. If you can buy your tickets at the vaccine place, you get a discount.
There you go, man.
Just kidding. That's not true. Nobody hold me to that. I should not have said that.
You're already disclaiming that.
Yeah, I should not have said that. Very cool. Well, Ryan, dude, like I said, thank you so much for coming on here and giving me a little bit of your time. Me and you will be able to say goodbye off air. I appreciate everybody tuning in. As of right now, my next episode will be this coming Monday, and I'm trying to think of who I got coming on here. This is terrible that it's slipping my mind like this. I know I've got 2 guests.
Who you got?
I know next Friday I've got Mark Tornillo from Accept coming on, but I can't remember
that's
who.
Good, but you know what? You need this next week. Go through your email.
I'm going through I'm on my Instagram right now,
blowing up everyone's email.
Oh,
you were.
How did I forget? It's Zach Throne from Corey Taylor's band and Bruce Kulick's band.
How did you forget that?
It just happened. It literally just happened the night before last. So, this week I actually did more episodes in a week than I think I've ever done. So I think I've done 6 this week since Sunday. So I've had
good for you, week. Man. All right. Still got a voice.
Yeah, well, I let guys like Chip come on here who just do all the talking, and I just get to sit back and drink my coffees.
Chip has no voice. He just talks like this the whole time.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much. And like I said, me and you will be able to say goodbye off air. Everybody go check out the Alice Cooper band meeting this Saturday.
And check out next Tuesday. We have Eric Weinstein on as our guest in the trenches. Very interesting guest. My most cerebral guest that I've had. And I've had a lot of cerebral guests on, but this is by far, do you realize that? He's one of the, intellectuals of the intellectual dark web.
Oh wow, okay, I'll have to tune into that one.
You definitely will.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, thank you so much, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. I will see you guys Monday with Mr. Zach Throne.
Cheers.